You're on StratNews Global and I'm Nitin Gokhale. With me today is EU's ambassador to India, Hervé Delphin, who's leading the EU effort to increase and improve India's relationship with the European countries, and who's had a massive event that took place less than a month ago when the large EU delegation was in Delhi and had extensive talks with the Indian leadership, and of course looked at how the relationship can improve further. So this is as good as a time as any to actually discuss where is the relationship headed and what is there to look forward to between India and the European countries. So welcome and thank you for this opportunity to discuss what is the status of relationship. So let me straight away ask you, the visit has gone off exceedingly well of your large delegation led by President, and of course lots of outcomes, but there are likely to be further improvements in the relationship. So if you can give your brief assessment of where do you see the relationship.
Thank you, first of all, Nitin, for having me in your program. Now, as you rightly pointed out, it was quite of a massive event. Just if you think of it, it was the two leaders bringing together, on the one hand, the Commission, 22 commissioners, and on the side of the Indian government, 20 ministers. And they met in all possible geometries of clusters, bilaterals, and plenary. Mm-hmm. So it was a full-on conversation held at multiple levels, and that indeed yielded a lot of results and outcomes. But it's just the beginning of it. If you consider that for 2025 we see it as the year of EU-India relations, because this visit heralds a new momentum in the relation. Not that it was in a bad place, quite the contrary, but we really want to take it to a new level. Mm-hmm. And basically what we expect to see, and I think both sides see it the same way, is in the course of this year, more engagements, more follow-up to the visit of the college of the Commission here in India, discussions on what is the future roadmap, joint roadmap for cooperation in the years to come. And that should culminate by the end of the year with the EU-India summit that will also be held in Delhi. So as you can see, it's a full-on year ahead of us, but it really started in the best possible manner with this visit. And we could see the traction on both sides, the determination to engage on all topics, and I think that makes, this visit quite unique and special. I'm quoting the EAM, Dr. Jashankar, it is the way he put it.
Absolutely. So let's take a little bit deeper dive into what has been achieved and what you hope to achieve in 2025. What are the, say, 2 or 3 main areas of focus as far as both countries are concerned?
I think the first area, clearly, without any doubt, is the economic agenda. The EU is, both EU and India represent 25% of global GDP. So we know we are important players, and the EU is the largest trading partner of India at present. Collectively, we are ahead of China and the US. In goods, we are the first. In services, I think we are in the top 3 or 4. But together, we are close to 200 billion two-way trade. So it's significant. So the negotiation, as you know, of the FTA is full on. The leaders put a very strong statement by saying that the FTA must be concluded by the end of the year. And I can tell you there is strong determination. And the negotiating teams on both sides are really committed. You just had the 10th round that happened in Brussels last week, and the next round is already slated for early May. One has to see this as the largest ever FTA that both sides will sign up to. So it is a massive undertaking. So when people ask me, well, where are the difficulties, I say, what would you expect when you have such 2 big players and such a comprehensive agreement? It's inevitable that you would have conversation. But what I think is distinctly remarkable is, I think, the determination of both sides to get it done,
Right,
get it signed.
Yes.
And it will not be easy. No one has said it will be ever easy.
Yeah.
But this is really a key element.
Sure.
The second element, as part of this economic agenda, is the Trade and Technology Council. As you know, the EU has only two of this kind in the world, one with the US and the other one with India. And this is, I think, an expression of the importance we attach to this dialogue and concrete cooperation in technology. And that covers from the research, innovation to market uptake in the digital domain, but in new cutting-edge technologies. So we've agreed, for example, to do joint procurement, joint funding of activities that will lead to matchmaking between European startups and Indian startups. For example, in the recycling of EV batteries. You know, it will be a new ecosystem.
Major challenge going ahead.
Exactly. We are producing batteries, but there is an economy of recycling batteries. Right. Who will own that business will have an advantage. The green hydrogen and technologies, for example, for plastic, marine plastic litters to be treated, which is a massive problem of pollution around the world, and the Prime Minister raised it in the discussion with President von der Leyen. And I think this is something also where we can take the lead. It's also a reflection of, I think, both India and Europe's commitment in the High Seas Treaty, ocean governance, and I think so. We are tuned to that. And there is, of course, a market access aspect that are covered. As I said, technology, we just signed an MOU on semiconductors, and the conversation also was for very much focus on semiconductors. How we can basically develop a supply chain between Europe and India, combine our forces from, I would say, the high end to the legacy chips. So it's a whole ecosystem where we see each other as reliable partners for this supply chain. So, I mean, I could expand, but there is a lot in this, this basket. But the second basket is security and defense.
Right.
And I think it goes from different layers and levels, from, I would say, a dialogue and consultations on how we assess the security and threat landscape.
Right.
We have dedicated discussions and dialogues on, we just had last week on cyber, on maritime security, but we also have activities on counterterrorism.
Right.
And now we want to expand to new areas like space, the security dimension of AI.
Yes.
So this is an area where really security and defense, not only we want to cooperate, exchange best practices, cooperate concretely in initiatives, and I will come back to that.
Yes.
So this is really gaining traction. If you think that we started this only in 2021 and where we are now, it's night and day.
That's right.
What is now the sort of the new blocks coming is the interest in cooperation in defense industry.
Right, which we'll talk about in a moment. I just want to concentrate a bit on the geopolitics, and then we will look at security and defense a little bit later.
But maybe I can just complete the three you mentioned.
The third one.
But actually, it's a good seg to your question. Geopolitics is how we, EU and India, want to partner for global partnerships and initiatives.
Exactly.
In this world of transformation, of transitions, of turbulences, whatever the name you want to put on it, we see EU and India as stabilizing forces.
Absolutely.
Forces for good. And it's becoming more of a rare commodity. And
in an era of disruptions.
Around all these disruptions. But I think here we are very much aligned in, we want a rule-based order, we want a cooperative order. We are not for aggressive agendas. We are for peace. We are connected to global commons on sustainable development, sustainable finance, climate agenda, biodiversity. So on this, I think this is another important pillar. So these three pillars: economy, security and defense, and global partnerships.
Absolutely.
And when I say global partnerships, is at the overall level, but it could also be at the sub-regional level,
Sure.
like IMEC,
Right.
which is an important
Oh, yes.
connectivity at the regional level.
Correct.
So this is really the three key items.
Which are not just the outcome of the visit, but also your agenda for a long-term partnership going forward. As I can see that. I need to take a break, but don't go away. This is a fascinating conversation with EU's ambassador to India, and we will come back with more just in a moment.
The Arc of Power, a never-before-documented comprehensive series from India's Andaman and Nicobar Command, ANC, highlights the critical significance of the tri-service fortress islands, which some call the country's unsinkable aircraft carriers. We explore its strategic depth from remote islands to vital maritime choke points and witness the command's vigilance securing India's interests against rising regional challenges. In Part 1, the Indian Navy, Army, Air Force and Coast Guard in joint exercises off and on Rutland Island.
Welcome back. I'm in conversation with EU's ambassador to India, and in the first part we covered the bilateral relationship between EU and India in the context of the recent big visit by the EU President and the Commissioners. But I want to go a little deeper into what a security partnership between India and the EU can bring to the table in a world which is going through a lot of churn today. So let me start with that. When you look at geopolitics brought in by, or the disruption in geopolitics brought in by President Trump, just in 2 months that he's been in office in White House, he has said that the old guarantees, security guarantees to Europe may not be continuing or may not be in the same form. In that context, you spoke about rules-based order that EU is, very insistent upon, like India is. Where do you see the current state of affairs as far as Europe is concerned? We'll talk about that first and then come to the bilaterals.
Thanks. I think first what we see in the world has been a bit of a slow onset and now picking up.
Right.
So people sort of trying to gaze at the horizon, what is coming up, but what we see emerging is really a world in deep transformation. In transition, that transformation, geopolitical transformation, technological transformation, societal transformation.
Yes.
And all these come at once, some with sort of a longer swell, some's coming more abruptly, but it's all converged towards a new world organization, and no one knows exactly where is the landing spot.
True.
But the question is, what do we want?
Yeah.
Do we want a multipolar world, which will be, you want a cooperative version of it, a transactional version of it, or a confrontational version of it?
Sure.
And you may have the three at the same time as well.
Oh, yes.
So I think in that context, you need to be clear about who you are, what your interests are, and what do you want, and how you engage with the other partners.
True.
I think for the EU, over the past years, clearly the sense of increasing our resilience to shocks, external shocks, has been very much on our radar. It started with, I would say, our economic resilience to shocks, because we discovered through the crisis, through the way economy can be weaponized, our dependency on certain key supply chains, but also on medication, for example, during the COVID.
Sure.
So I think this exercise has been ongoing for Europe for some time about how we increase our economic resilience and economic security.
Right.
It's even in the portfolio of one commissioner, economic security. And on this, we have a whole set of activities that have been developed and policies that help us to withstand the shocks that we receive. The second is the geopolitical shocks that are very much coming up. And here it was more sudden than slow onset, although you can argue whether we should not have seen it coming.
Yeah.
And I think here basically it has a date. It was the 24th February 2022
Sure.
with the unprovoked aggression of Russia against Ukraine. And let's make no mistake, this is not just an assault on a country. It's an assault on the security of the European security order, but it's an assault on the whole world.
Sure.
Fundamental principle of the UN Charter.
Right.
We approach that from a sort of a brutal wake-up call on how we need indeed to increase our security. So what we've seen, as late as last week, we had the EU Commission presenting a new package called ReArm,
Right.
which looks at rearmament, military equipment for the EU, but it's just what I would call a rearmament, which is not just military equipment. It's a geopolitical rearmament and it's a societal rearmament. Yes. How we gear up to this new reality. You know, we always tended to portray the EU as a good, important economic player, but irrelevant.
No military muscle.
No military muscles, irrelevant geopolitical player.
Right.
I think, in a way, the fact that Russia is so much focused on us, that China is so much focused on us, and even US are so much focused on us, we should take it as a token,
As a compliment.
as a compliment, that the fact that we mean something.
Right.
And I think this is the story of what we've seen emerging, that there is a strategic surge of the EU of the past year at play, and people may not have seen it, but when you look from where the EU was even 5 years ago and where it is, there is a sea change. Right. And so we are now representing a collective force which we more articulate. We have our own issues and process internal to the EU, but it's normal. We are not a unitary state.
Right.
But everything we do is based on consensus and will. This is something that we club together, or we pool our sovereignties to do something greater for everything. So this is really at play. And this, on the security front, this is clearly now, we are full on.
Right.
But let's be clear, this is a defensive posture.
Right.
This is not an aggressive posture.
Good.
We are still a peace and security project. This is what was written in a way in our fundamental charter, our EU treaties, but we cannot let anyone threaten our security interests, threaten our societies.
Allow it to be threatened, yes.
Yeah, because it's surreptitious, it's interference in our election, it's cyber attacks, and it can be potentially a direct over-threshold attack.
Right.
So we have the full gamut
Yes.
of threats and risk, and that was the let's say, very much this thinking behind the adoption of the strategic compass, which happened to be adopted a few weeks before the launch of the Russia aggression.
Yes.
So it's not as if we've been...
So you were not caught by surprise. You were already preparing for it.
Exactly. This thinking was already very much there.
Right.
It's then simply that the Russian invasion accelerated the pace of the event and development.
So in that context, let's look at India-EU defense and security partnership. What aspects do you think they can help each other? India is also trying to sort of reorient its own manufacturing capacities. They want to do a lot of Make in India projects, but also want technology, which Europe has to offer. So how can they sort of create a win-win situation for both? Have you given it a thought? Have you thought about any plans on those lines really?
So if people read the material that was issued last week about the
rearmament, yes.
The rearmament, it has different windows.
Right.
One of the window, so we are talking about 800 billion.
Billion, yes.
So it's big money.
Big money.
One of the window is partnerships with partners. India is mentioned. So the very fact that India is mentioned is something that was not on the radar
Right.
years ago.
Correct.
So it shows the evolution of the thinking and the approach and how EU and India position each other, vis-à-vis each other. When it comes, and it is again written that 65% of all the money will be for homegrown military defense industry.
True.
That means there is a third that can be done with partners.
Right.
This third can be done with partners, and they are what is been put in this document is that partners with whom we have a security and defense partnership. So we do not have one with India yet.
Right.
But when President von der Leyen and President Modi, Prime Minister Modi met, and you can read from the leader's statement,
Yes.
they said we are exploring towards the possibility to sign a security and partnership agreement. So member states who have to decide by unanimity are currently have this proposal in front of their eyes. So I hope that in the coming weeks, when it is at the council level, this will be adopted. So this is the start. This is, I would say, the legal requirement of that.
Right.
Then the second is where, answer your question, where are the complementarities?
Right.
Already India has indicated interest in taking a part in the so-called reinforced cooperation, the PESCO program,
Yes.
the Eurodrone.
Sure.
So again, there is a legal requirement that we sign a security of information agreement, which is because we will exchange confidential information, industrial information, industrial secret. So this is also in the making. Absolutely. This has been launched. That will be signed in the course of this year.
Absolutely.
Eurodrones in interest of India. But the EU has identified 7 areas of critical capability gaps, from missiles, ammunitions, drones, counter-drones, AI warfare, and so on.
Sure.
So I think for India is to look what it can bring to Europe to address these
capability gaps.
This is where I think India has to position itself, because this is where there is a greater demand.
Sure.
So typically in ammunitions, India has a capacity to manufacture ammunitions on a large scale
yes.
and at a very good price. That could be a very interesting proposal.
Correct.
There can be other domains, like already European defense industry is present in India, by the way. Huh?
Sure.
We are manufacturing in India, investing in India.
Right.
So this is also something that to be seen how we can connect our ecosystem.
Right.
The fact that Europe, if you look at member states, sell military equipment already in India at a rather high level. I mean, a few of them, notably France, I think was leading the pack, but Italy, Germany, Sweden, Spain, Belgium, Spain. Yes. So you have a few number, but collectively, they are the largest.
Of course.
That makes the EU the largest contributor to, and we see the interest of India to diversify.
Of course.
And to sort of scale up, both in quantitative terms and in sort of the qualitative. And I think this is where we can also connect. We have respective needs that can complement each other.
Right.
So I really think this is a very potent area of cooperation that is really in a mutual benefit. So I think on that page, I'm pretty sure that in the coming years, we will see all this political will, this realization of complementarity be translated into concrete project, industrial project that will support each other's needs.
Absolutely.
And tie up our ecosystems even closer.
I have no doubt about that, given what's happening around the world and in India, of course. One final thought from you on the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific. The EU, I thought over the past couple of years, has been looking at Indo-Pacific and security and cooperation in this area quite seriously. What's the progress? What's your assessment on that front?
I think it's an important point, very much linked to the security, so it's a strategic security reading. Often there is a sort of flawed view that the EU is only interested in what's happening on its continent, and we sort of de-hyphenate from what's happening in the rest of the world. I mean, it could not be more wrong in the fact that while we are very much focused on the war that is ongoing now on our continent and the security challenges we face there. This has not distracted us from investing in the Indo-Pacific. And there is a very basic reason, is that we have already pivoted economically to this region. I mean, we just signed up a FTA with Thailand, with New Zealand. We are negotiating one with Australia, with India. We had signed up with Japan, with Korea, with Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, we have trade relations so strong in this part of the world. We also a lot of FDI. We are the top 3 FDI provider in any country. So we have a lot of equities here.
Correct.
So, and when you think that our the sea routes through Indian Ocean and the Straits up to South China Sea and China and that part of the world, this is about 40% of EU imports, 30% of EU exports. So that's so the question of this safe and free ocean is a free and safe ocean is very important for the routes.
Absolutely.
The stability of the region. We want more cooperation and more economic engagement, which is the economic glue that keeps the region together, and prevent instability, unilateral change of the stability. So I think this is the strategic landscape, and we have a long-standing cooperation with Pacific countries, with ASEAN, which is also a strategic partner.
Right.
And so any player of the region, we are very committed. We want to maintain that. This is really very much at the core of our interest. Then I would sort of zoom out a bit, more towards the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean is very much these days in the spotlight.
Right.
We have 2 of our 3 maritime military operations operating in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, northwest of Indian Ocean. For us, it is very key. And here, this is an area where we really cooperate. That was one of the key topics of last week's maritime security dialogue, where we are now moving from policy dialogue to cooperation at tactical level.
Sure.
How we can fight illegal trafficking, piracy,
Absolutely.
all the threats at surface of sea, under
the sea, yeah. True.
We have submarine cables that have been damaged.
Yes.
Also part of our positive agenda, which is the connectivity I make. We're also building now, there is this Blue Raman project of an undersea cable connecting Europe to India.
Right.
This is something we have to protect. We have to protect our infrastructures and assets.
True.
So this is part of the very much of the conversation. Also, how we cooperate together. The EU has just joined, as observer, the Indian Ocean Rim Association.
Yes.
We also joined the IPOI, the Indo-Pacific Ocean Initiative led by India. So we have plenty of regional fora and organizations where we want to pull together in the same direction, creating stability, cooperative orders that help, I would say, address all the issues. There are global challenges about sea rise, about biodiversity, economic agenda, also a positive one. But very mindful of the risk and threats that are operating in that area. And we do not want anyone to upset that balance, present a direct threat to our interest. And this is where I think the EU and India interests really intersect. So I think you will see even more engagement in the Indian Ocean between EU and India and cooperation.
You have a lot on your plate, economic, defense, strategic, climate, and I wish you all the best in the coming year or the rest of the months that are remaining in 2025 and further. But wonderful to get the insights and the details of what India and EU and what EU is doing in the current year, in the current context of geopolitical churn. Thank you very much for this time and the conversation.
Thank you very much, Nitin. Thank you.
Keep watching StratNews Global. You know where to reach us. Your feedback is extremely important. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you already haven't. And our sister channel, Bharat Shakti, also is available to you to do conversations on defense and security. Don't go away, but for the time being, it's goodbye.